Here's a company whose share price has gone up 66% on the JSE in the last year, 130% in the last 2 years. It's a retailer, surely. It's a micro-lender, surely. No, it's not. It's a boring old industrial company that distributes stuff that we actually need to build stuff, if you see what I mean. And it's doing a deal. Listen to this. Invicta Holdings Limited, assisted by the financial expertise and advisory services, it says here, of Standard Chartered, has announced the proposed acquisition of Kian Engineering Limited, a large distributor also of heavy equipment parts and diesel engine spares, listed on the Singapore Stock Exchange. In the studio with me now is the CEO of Invicta Holdings, and that is Arnold Goldstone. Arnold, thanks very much for joining us. A big deal. I mean, I wasn't being facetious when I said that your company is boring, but it's not the sort of one of the glamour companies, quietly going about its business, returning a lot of money to shareholders and increasing its earnings every year. But obviously you're thinking now beyond South Africa and beyond Africa. Why?
Well, initially we restricted our activities to South Africa until we reached saturation. We are at that point now. We will run into competition issues if we try and get very much bigger within our market. We can do little bolt-ons, no problem. But if we want to make the game changer type acquisitions in South Africa, we'll run into problems. We already have a market presence that is such that it will be difficult to do anything massive in the country.
Do you already do something with Kian, or is this just something that came across your desk, you had a look at it and you thought, this is for us?
It was something which Standard Chartered introduced to us a little while ago. We do business with them indirectly because we buy certain products that they sell through our company called ESP. So we are familiar with their product, and of course, you know, we sell a lot of capital equipment ourselves, and this has application in the spares of the capital equipment. So we are familiar with the product, we are familiar with the company, but it's only really through the advices of Standard Chartered that we started taking it a little bit more seriously. Okay,
let's look at the semantics of the deal now. How much is it costing you? How are you funding it?
The total purchase price is about 1.3 billion rand. Of course, we're talking Sing dollars, so it's a bit of a moving target depending on what the exchange rate is. But at the moment, about 1.3 million rand.
Oh, before you go on, actually, on that note, with the rand doing what it's doing, getting quite choppy on a day-to-day basis, have you hedged your Sing dollars already?
We haven't hedged it completely. We are in the process of doing so. Of course, you can't hedge unless you have a firm foreign commitment, which we now have. So we are in the process of hedging. We are not too worried about it because, of course, we're going to be getting foreign assets for our purchase price as well as foreign earnings. So it will be a point in time at which we will pay away. But naturally, the weakening rand has concerned us. Our experience with the rand under these circumstances, it tends to be quite volatile. It reacts to sentiment, goes negative, and then starts settling down again. So we're not too concerned about the rand. Purchase price of 1.3 billion is being funded about 300 million by the management, who are going to come in for 25% stake, and the balance by Invicta. 65 million Sing dollars, which is roughly about 600 million rand. I beg your pardon, about 500 million rand is going to come from offshore financing, and the balance is internal funding via South Africa.
So it's not going to stretch you. I mean, you've got a lot of cash anyway, haven't you? I mean, this deal sounds as though it's going to go through quite smoothly. The market reacts okay this morning. Last time I looked, you were up about 0.5%. So the market seems to like it. Without, you know, obviously the deal will unravel over the next few weeks. What's the timeline on it?
Timeline is payaways in about February. There's a whole lot of process that we have to go through, some regulatory stuff. We are delisting the company. It is listed on the stock exchange there. We won't have enough of a public spread to maintain the listing. Doesn't mean we won't look at listing internationally at some future point, but it doesn't.
What, listing it as a separate entity?
As a separate entity, if it's warranted. You know, one of the reasons one should be listed is to raise capital in the markets. We don't anticipate the need for that at the moment. So we'll maintain our listing in South Africa and then delist Kian. So February should be pay away, and then we've got to make the acquisition work.
Okay, so there's no dilution. The market likes it. Is it going to be revenue enhancing from day one?
Yes, it will be. It'll add about just on 1.1 billion rand of revenue. The effect on our earnings is small at this stage of the game, roughly about 1%, but we anticipate that will grow. We'll bring a different flavor to the business. We'll be able to introduce them to a more Western way of doing things. and certainly help them to crack into westernized markets. They are very strong in the Asian markets at the moment, given their heritage, but we'll be able to introduce a bit more of an international flavour. Apart
from the fact that the Standard Chartered put this on your desk and you thought this is a good thing, I mean, did you then say to yourself, well, we've actually been looking to get into this part of the world anyway, and we can use this as a springboard to perhaps further expansion?
Yes, absolutely. The reason Standard Chartered spoke to us in the first instance was that we have been looking internationally for the past 3 years. We've had a stab at 2 businesses, one listed in the European world, which didn't succeed. And we've had another look at something based in the Eurasian world as well. So, you know, third time lucky for us. It suits us perfectly. We like businesses where you can touch and see and feel the real goodies. You know, there's very little goodwill in this acquisition. It's something we can see and feel and touch. And that gives us great comfort.
And now you've done this, of course, you're going to be inundated with people sending you proposals for similar sorts of companies around the world, and it must be tempting for you to have a look at them, because, as you said, you know, you've done so well. Yes. I mean, people like Christo Wiese don't hang their hat on a business without knowing that it's going to do very well. But you need to expand.
Yes.
But I suppose one step at a time.
One step at a time. You know, historically, we've always had the view that we will only do one transaction at a time, digest that, and move on. At the moment, we have the capacity to handle more than one, but this one is a big slug for us. We'll settle it down. We have a fantastic management team in Invicta, good depth throughout the group, which means that we have the capacity to handle more than one reasonable sized acquisition. We're busy bidding down 3 to 4 at the moment, but this is by far the biggest. So we'll let this one digest, and then we'll move on and look at other opportunities, which we always welcome, of course.
Some people would say, of course, that this is an accident. You got this thing on your desk and you thought, well, Standard Chartered know their business because they're dominant in that region. That's where they made their name, and that's where they continue to be a major player. But on the other hand, you must have sat down and said to yourself, actually, I'm not quite sure that I like what's happening in South Africa at the moment. Maybe we'll have a couple of years of relatively anemic GDP growth, and that will affect our earnings. So let's do something about it now. So thinking forward.
Without a doubt. Our strategy was very clear. 2 years ago, the management team of Invicta sat together and said, we have to grow beyond the borders of South Africa. We targeted the emerging markets and very specifically have been seeking out opportunities. So we've got a lot of fishing lines out there. It wasn't by accident. We caught the fish that we were after, one of the fish that we were after. There are some others that we have our eyes on, but it's not by accident.
Yeah, okay, it's a fairly long cast if you're fishing between South Africa and Singapore. What about casting a little bit closer to the bank and having a look at some more African opportunities?
Absolutely.
Are there some?
Yes, there are African opportunities. They just are not of the scale that you would have with this kind of opportunity. You know, here we have an exporter of product. They source, they use their technical expertise to source the right product and sell globally. So the world is your market. Yeah. In Africa, it's very localized, and we generally follow our customers into Africa. Difficult for us to set up an African operation because our products don't really lend themselves to general application in Africa. We are after industrial activity, not much of it in Africa.
Okay, so you've targeted the Far East. Yes. Logically then, I mean, one deal at a time, but I'm looking forward now. Will you suddenly, as you will have obviously a presence there, apart from Kian Ann's people already, you'll have people there,
yes,
and then you can look at other places in that part of the world. Anything that really sticks out for you?
I don't want to say too much at this stage.
Oh, come on, no one's watching.
There aren't enough people watching, are there? We have target companies that we have our eyes on, and we are patient. You know, sometimes we've waited for 5 years for acquisitions to come our way. Prod and pushed, and eventually they come our way. So yes, and as I said, we are concentrating on the emerging markets because that's where we feel comfortable in the same industries. Let me emphasize that. Nothing outside of what we know. So it will be the same activity just repeated throughout the emerging market.
And very finally, you're going to become a Singapore Airlines frequent flyer now, presumably. Do you have to, are you going to be there?
Yes, of course I'll be there, but more importantly, my management team will be there. The designated person who heads up our capital equipment division, under which this will fall, he will be clocking up the air miles. I'll be alongside him on occasions, not every single month, but he'll be there regularly.
Okay, Arnold, well done, and come in the next time there's results, and of course the next time you do